Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special meeting of the Planning West Committee. This additional meeting has been called due to volumes of applications. We are not expecting a fire drill today, so if the alarm sounds, please leave the building by the fire exits, which are either side of this room. And we gather in the car park at the rear of the building by the law courts. This meeting is being recorded and will be streamed to YouTube. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware that they may be recorded even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, please let me know now. Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move into the meat of our meeting. Okay, so apologies for absence, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Dave Mansell and Will Wren. I have no further apologies received. Ross and Stephen both on it.
Right.
Ross and Lee and Stephen Podley both on it.
Right, okay. No Steve Buckley, no Ross Henley. Okay. Okay. And declarations of interest, or any declarations of interest from members of the committee regarding any of the items on this morning's agenda? Okay, thank you very much. Sorry. Okay. As if by magic, yeah. Okay. Public question time. Are we aware of any?
No public questions, Chair.
Thank you, Josh. Okay. We'll move straight into the meat of our meeting then, and that's item 4 on your agenda, which is the planning application SCC stroke 4033, I believe 2023, which is Gateway Park and Ride at Royston, Taunton, and that's pages 13 to 28 in your pack. Move to the officer. Bruce, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. This is an application to vary the hours of.
You need to get closer to the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. So it's an application to vary the hours of operation of Gateway Park and Ride car park. The application is being reported to committee because it's a council development. So the current permitted hours are 6:45 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. The proposed hours are 6:15 a.m. until 23:15 Monday to Saturday. And that's the location of the park and ride there, just by junction 25 to the east of the M5 motorway. That's just the layout of the car park with the ecological enhancement areas sort of around the boundary there. And that's just the aerial showing the car park and the tree planting, and also in relation to the nearest settlement. So the key issues are the impact on ecology, and particularly on bats from lighting, and the impact on highways and the operation of the park and ride, and the impact on the amenity of the local area. So the Highway Authority and Somerset Ecology Services were consulted. They've raised no objections subject to the conditions that are included in the report. There were no third-party representations, and the conclusion is that
Ruth, I'm very sorry, but members are still struggling to hear you. Your lovely soft voice, but we're not picking it up properly
Yeah,
on the
okay.
mic.
Right.
So members are struggling to hear you.
okay. The conclusion is that the proposal's in line with the development plan, and the impact in terms of amenity and on ecology and highways are limited, subject to the appropriate conditions, and any impact is outweighed by the benefits of providing sustainable travel opportunities. So the proposal is considered to be in line with the with national policy and the local plan policy as set out in the report, and the recommendation is to approve.
Okay, thank you. Members, anybody wish to speak on this? Derek?
I think we all know that the reason this has come before the committee is principally because this is a council application. But I can't imagine that any of us see anything massively controversial in this. I think the reality is that when the site was developed in the first instance some years ago, that there probably was some concern that it operating hours beyond those that were originally agreed might have an effect. But the fact that now, with this application coming forwards, nobody locally or at all has objected to it probably underlines the fact that people have come to accept this site. It's part of the local area, and the reasons behind the application are very positive. It is to improve the service from the park and ride. Dare I say it, what is not to like about this? As long as it's done sensibly and is reviewed and kept under proper scrutiny going forwards, I'm fully in support of it.
Rosemary?
Yeah, I fully support this application, but does this mean we've got another one coming forward for the Western Park and Ride that's off the, yeah,
I'm unaware of one currently.
because it seems strange
Their
that we've got
times
this
are, their
one
times are
coming
slightly
forward
different.
and not the one that is
think-
at my end.
I
which is
think
Western
Silk
End.
Mills has slightly different operating hours. I'm not aware of any proposals currently. I mean, obviously, we'd have to deal with any application on its individual merits, but I'm not aware of an application from us, from Silk Mills at this, as we speak.
Great shame, because I know people that would use it later.
Yes, it's always possible that somebody will come forward with it. So we'll see. Okay, so I'll take them in the order I spotted them. It's Caroline Ellis, please, followed by Andy Sully. Thank you.
Yes, I think this comes into the category of no-brainer. It's obviously been well thought through, and this is just essential. If we want to boost active travel, we've got very few levers at our disposal. We've got privatised bus companies, and we have to subsidise various routes. We've actually got to maximise the use of both of our parks and rides. So anything that's extending the usage seems to me a very good idea, and it will benefit the climate, it will benefit people's employment and leisure opportunities. It's an absolute no-brainer as far as I can see.
Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. The only thing from reading the report that stood out for me was about about condition 19 was about allowing non-park and ride buses or the Hinkley buses to use the site. Because for many years we've been saying, look, we should get the mega bus in there and things like that. And I thought that would have been an ideal opportunity to do it now. So that's my only concern, is that the condition 13 on page 25 will still going to exclude other bus services from using this facility. I think as members we need to talk to relevant portfolio holders and obviously the council office to see how we can take that forward, because that's been on the cards for many years. But we've always told we can't do it at the moment or whatever. But I think we should have done it at this time. But I can see in here it says that they need to do further impact assessments on it. So that's my only concern. I'm fully in favour, but I think we should go away and look at this. I know that's not part of the planning application, but we should look at allowing other people to use the facility. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Nick Cottle, please. Nick, welcome.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say exactly what Andy Sully has just said, it seems an ideal opportunity to have the mega bus or the Falcon bus out to Bristol to stop at the Park and Ride. It's an awful place where it is at the moment at the Holiday Inn. Nobody can get to it. It's just a jam. There are no buses to that particular bit, whereas there's a bus directly to the Park and Ride from the middle of town. So anyone in their suitcase goes, is there a chance that we can get the, well, I mean, I suppose that they're a private operation, so it's up to them to choose where they park, but can we encourage them to do that? Because it makes total sense. And when it comes to the ecology, do we have downward facing lighting on the,
Norman Cavalier, who's going to expand on that very item.
You guessed right. Yeah, dark skies policy that we have under the ecology report, there is a limit of 10 meters out, no more than 4 lux. So I'm assuming from that they're down lighting. But the other thing I didn't pick up here is, and I expect they are they all LEDs? Because we're concerned about the bats. And if we've got any of the old lights there, if they're removed, they are AC and they upset the bats.
Okay, I suspect they are, but if they're not, I mean, we can make an additional condition, Norman, if you're happy with that, to ensure that the lights are A, downlighters, and B, LED lights. I think the issue with the Megabus or Falcon bus or whatever it's called this week, is they are 2 different operators. Okay. And I think that's what the issue was in the first place. So that might not be as easy as you would think to facilitate movement for people to and from Taunton. And say there are different organisations. I think that is the issue. They don't want to see a competitor gain any kind of advantage.
have we approached them to ask them?
Personally, no, Nick, but Gary's got it. So
Yeah, Chair, not quite a full answer to that, but obviously anything beyond what's before you now would be the subject of a separate application. I understand that discussions are taking place around that. So as and when that comes in as a proposal, again, as a council application, that would come before you as well. But obviously this case is, you've got to look at what's before you, but I know you know that.
are you content for Gary and I to sort out the wording condition for the downlightings and the change to LEDs if they're not LEDs? Committee?
Yeah.
You're happy with that? Okay. So do we have, sorry, does anybody else have any questions or comments? Sorry, a bit.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quickie here. I understand this is the extension of hours is between Monday and Saturday, and it's not Sunday. And within the body of the report, I actually read that a lot of people from Musgrove Park Hospital use the facility. Don't they actually have people working at the hospital on Sundays? Yeah, but what I'm actually saying is, you know, what is the justification behind Saturday? Is it lack of usage, or can I just have clarification on that?
We can certainly ask the officers to speak about Sunday opening as well, but I suspect the answer will be it's not economically viable for the operator.
Chair, and also this is one where obviously it is the council looking at the planning application, but it's also the council making the planning application. I think that's a message for the council as applicant as to whether going forward there should be, you know, push the boundaries a little bit more. So I think that can obviously be minuted and noted. But in terms of this application, obviously looking at the Monday to Saturday expansion, but certainly the messages from members in terms of other services and additional hours on a Sunday has been made.
Okay, Norman.
Just mischief making, Mr. Chairman, but should parking charges come in on a Sunday, perhaps the park and ride business would improve on a Sunday?
Yeah.
It's entirely possible, Norman.
Yes.
Okay, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose that we accept the recommendations.
That's excellent. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Right, moving on to agenda item 5. And agenda item 5 is 38/24/0131, and it's full planning permission for the erection of a 66-bed care home for older people with parking, access, landscaping and associated groundworks on the land west of Killams Lane, Taunton. And we're just changing officers, and Paul Sherman, who's the officer, will join us. And I'd like to welcome Stephen Buxley and thank you for attending this morning, Stephen. And when you're ready, Paul.
That's what you said. That's what you said. Double through.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry for the delay. So this is an application for a 66-bed care home for older people with parking, access and landscaping associated groundworks on land west of Killams Lane, Taunton. Two lights on, does that mean anything? Yeah, there you go. Hopefully that helps. I'll stoop and speaking to it. So that's the application site outlined in red. It's on the Killams Park estate, and the application site comprises an area of land that wasn't developed as part of the original planning application. That's an aerial view of the land in question. When the site originally came forward for residential development, it was reserved for the option to provide a primary school. That option ultimately wasn't taken up by the council, and the developer played a financial contribution towards the delivery of a primary school. And at that point, the land reverted to control by the developer, and there are no planning obligations relating to its use at this time. That is a layout of the application site. Yeah, it's a slight delay between my screen and yours. So it's an H-shaped block with parking provided to the street, access to the highway. We've got 25 parking spaces to the front and areas of outside amenity space to the rear and within the central wings of the building. These are some elevations of the building. You can see it's 2-storey to reflect the existing residential development on Killams Park, and the design features and materials are also chosen to reflect the character of the existing residential development. We've got some floor plans, a bit small probably on your screen, but 66 bedrooms with areas of communal areas for eating. There's a salon and communal lounges, as well as the access to external amenity space. And there we have some artist rendering. The image on the left is of the front of the building, and the image on the right is across the landscape grounds to the rear. I'll take you through some site photos. That's an application, the application site on your left, and the new build houses beyond. That's also from the street at the front of the site, looking the opposite direction. The application site in front of you, and beyond you can see some commercial, agricultural former buildings. Another view of the application site, and you see there's no development currently on the site. And that is a view from the residential properties which bound the site to the north, looking south across the application site. So your key considerations tonight is that this is an unused area of land within a modern housing development site, and the provision of a care home, although a care home would contribute to the delivery of our 5-year housing land supply. The site is in a sustainable location. The scheme is considered to be of good standard of design and will provide high quality accommodation for the future occupants of development. And officers consider the proposal will be sympathetic to the character and scale of the surrounding residential properties. and I'll conclude there. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Right, we're going to move on to the public speakers now. And the first speaker I've got is Caroline Adams, and Caroline's virtually is on our virtual system at the moment. Good morning, Caroline. I hope you can hear me. And
Yeah, well,
excellent. Yes, I can hear you. Wonderful.
we are experiencing problems with the audio, so bear with me. Do you want me to start?
If you would, it's the problem with the audio is being addressed now. I've got two people working on it now.
Okay.
Okay, but we can hear you, and it is being recorded. So your 3 minutes starts when you begin speaking. Okay. Thank you, Caroline.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Local Residents Committee to express concerns regarding the proposed care home development. Whilst we acknowledge the importance of such facilities, the current proposal fails to address significant issues related to transport, accessibility and parking, which will negatively impact both residents and those using the care home. Roads on the estate remain unadopted by the council with no change expected for at least 18 months. This means the area is already dealing with infrastructure challenges which will only be made worse by additional traffic to the care home. For the past 18 months, we have been facing serious parking and driving issues due to students from Richard Hewage College parking throughout the estate on various roads and side streets, creating blind spots and driving at excessive speeds, as many as 40+ vehicles daily, with Cutcliffe Road just not being a suitable junction. This issue arose after resident parking schemes were introduced nearer to the college, pushing students to park further into our estate. Despite a new college shuttle bus, students continue to park here, causing congestion and frustration for the residents. The planning proposal does not adequately consider these existing parking problems. Instead, it will introduce even more vehicles into the area by way of staff visitors and deliveries. There are only 25 car parking spaces provided for the care home, yet 22 staff members will be arriving before 9 o'clock in the morning, already nearly maxing out the available parking. This does not even account for visitors or delivery vehicles. The travel plan included in the proposal suggests that many staff will rely on public transport, but this is not a realistic assumption because the only bus service in the area runs every 2 hours and does not arrive before 9 o'clock, making it impossible for staff to use public transport for morning shifts. The travel plan aims to reduce single occupancy car trips by 15%. But without reliable public transport options, this is unachievable. Furthermore, the plan itself acknowledges that visitors will likely be elderly and will predominantly arrive by motor vehicle, increasing traffic and demand for already limited parking. Given these serious concerns, we respectfully request that before planning permission is granted, a formal travel and parking survey be conducted to assess the real impact of this development. The assumptions in the proposal do not reflect reality, and a review of public transport services to the estate to better accommodate staff, visitors and residents. If these concerns are not addressed, the development will create major congestion, parking shortages and ongoing frustration for residents. We urge the committee to carefully consider these issues before making a decision, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, and perfectly timed. Thank you for that, Caroline.
Thank you.
Okay, the only other public speaker I've got is the agent, Samuel Finlay. Mr. Finlay, if you'd come up to the public speaking desk, when you're comfortable, push the right hand button, the light will come on, and your 3 minutes start when you begin speaking. Okay, and welcome to my committee.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Samuel Finlay and I am a planning manager for the applicants L&T Care Developments. Thank you for this opportunity to address you this morning. The L&T Group comprises several companies which specialise in the development and operation of purpose-built care homes for older people. L&T have successfully developed more than 235 homes across the country over the last 30 years and have proudly become the market leader in the sector. In this time, L&T have created over 15,000 care bed spaces and more than 13,000 jobs in the care sector. The care home has been designed to be a community building which will provide support for both residents, their family and the wider community. As well as providing a home to 66 residents, the home will create a total of 60 full-time equivalent jobs for the local community once fully occupied. This job creation will significantly boost the local job market. Our overriding objective is to provide a home and a great place to live for those in need of care. The L&T Group has 3 operational arms: Danforth, Oyster and Crystal Care. One of these operational arms will take ownership of the care home upon completion and bring the home to life as a real community asset. The application site is located within Killams Park, Taunton, and comprises a currently vacant grassland plot. The wider site benefits from outline consent, which is largely built out. A primary school was not included within the original outline application. However, a subsequent legal agreement secured the land in the event that the Education Authority required the land for these purposes. The Local Education Authority decided in 2023 that the subject site was not required for a primary school, and instead exercised an option to secure a significant contribution towards the school. This contribution has been paid with the contribution already spent on another school. The care home development is sustainably designed and intends to deliver all energy requirements from discreetly accommodated on-site renewable sources, including a ground source heat pump and roof-mounted solar panels. These features have the potential to power up to 100% of the home's energy requirements, again aligning with L&T's commitment to promoting sustainability throughout the development. The parking provision on site totals 25 spaces, including 2 disabled and 6 electric vehicle bays. This total is in excess of the adopted standard, and highways have offered no objection during the application. The scheme has also looked to mitigate any potential phosphate impact on the River Tone through the purchase of phosphate credits. All required reports have been submitted as part of the application and required conditions agreed with the applicant. This application is not in any sense speculative, and we are keen to have an immediate presence on site upon grant of planning permission. To summarise, our objective is to deliver the best care home possible, providing a great place to live for residents, which older people from within the local community very much deserve. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Mr. Sherford, was there anything you wish to come back on?
Thank you, Chairman. Just briefly in relation to the access, parking and transport. So the application site's within an existing residential area, which was previously considered to be sustainable when it was approved for residential development. We note the issues with the local bus service, but that's beyond the scope of this application to resolve, as is the timescale for the adoption of the local roads. And this application cannot do a lot about the parking by students attending the local college. The parking survey, again, is not reasonable to request because we do not feel that the application will result in significant on-street parking. There are 25 parking spaces available, and the transport plan and travel plan submitted indicates that a maximum of 24. The staff will be present at any one time. One would hope some of those will come via bus and cycle. It's also noted that the visitor operating hours are not restricted. So you wouldn't have a narrow window when all visitors would arrive. Visitors will arrive and depart evenly throughout the day. So in short, officers consider the impact on the road access and level of parking is appropriate. And probably just one final thing to touch on is the roads and the development was accommodated and designed with the fact in mind that this may become a school site, which obviously would have had quite considerable transport and parking arrangements of its own. Those were considered to be acceptable at that time, and officers are satisfied that the associated arrangements for the care home are more than adequate. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, Andrew Hadley, followed by Andrew Sully, please.
Thank you, Chair. It seems to me, and I can completely sympathise with the resident that's spoken this morning. I mean, we have had a similar issue in one of my patches with the local college, but the issue she's talking about seems to be the local college and not the prospective care home that's being built. And I would hope that, I mean, we managed to sort out the issues around parking by having some timed yellow lines around the school drop off and pick up point times so that the kids can't park there just when they want to, and is free for the rest of the day. So I think there are parking restrictions that can be put in place that don't impede the local residents, but can restrict kids from the local college parking there, which should be looked at separately, I believe. The actual care home, obviously it was going to be a school, so the planning permission for the original primary school would have had lots of teachers parking there and everything else. So I don't know how we can suddenly say that a care home can't have the carers, but the school can have the teachers. So I'm tempted to approve this one.
Thank you, Andrew. Andy, followed by Derek Perry and Carol Ellis, please.
Thank you, Chair. On the sort of similar veins as Councillor Hadley, it's a shame. It's not going to be a school there, but obviously a care home. They looked at the options at the beginning. I think it was going to be either care home or school. But if it was a school, just think of the amount of traffic. If it was a school, dropping off, even if it's a small primary school, say they have 100 pupils, the amount of car traffic movements in the morning going to the school, dropping them off, picking up, be far greater than being a care home. So I think this is probably less of the two evils in terms of traffic movement. So I'm happy to second the motion, what Councillor Hadley's, I think, proposed, but happy to listen to whatever else has got to say. Thank you.
Okay, well, Councillor Hadley has confirmed that he has proposed, and I've made a note to you second that. So Derek Perry, followed by Caroline Ellis, please.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on this one because I was the district member for this area for Vivery between September 2019 and the final demise of Somerset West and Taunton District Council. So I know a little bit about this site. And I think it probably has to be said from the outset in recognition of the public concern that I've got every sympathy for those members of the public who lament the fact that this isn't going to be a primary school. I think it should be said on record that when planning permission was granted for Killams Park back long ago, long before I was involved in the local council, that people will have anticipated, let's use the words carefully there, anticipated that a school was going to come at some point. But the reality is that that was never a part of the initial planning permission. Rather, it was a site being set aside for the council as a local education authority to take it for a school if it wanted it. The reality, however, is that the council as local education authority had an option either to take it for a school or in the alternative to take a financial contribution towards education provision elsewhere. And the council in that capacity did precisely that. Whether or not that was the right decision is not something that we're here today to be considered, but it's done. And that money has been taken and spent. And that's part of the reason, not the only reason, that Orchard Grove Primary School is now up and running. Whether or not that really covers the education need in this area, again, is not for debate today, whatever we might think about it. And so we're left then with a planning application for something which has a community use, and perhaps not in such a strict sense as a school, but it's a building which caters for a need on a site which is allocated for a building in any event. I do share concern in relation to parking provision. I think it is unrealistic to think that anybody in any significant numbers is going to come to this site by bus, given the lack of a good bus service nearby. I've also got every sympathy for people who refer to the problems caused by Richard Hewish parking. That was a big issue in the area, not this in Killams Park development, but in the wider area when I was the district council member for that area. And in fact, we sort of predicted that in due course, the students would push into Killams Park. I dare say that as and when the Killams Park roads are adopted, that there will then be conversation locally about whether it should be included in the residence permit area, but that's a question for another time. It's worth saying though, isn't it? If this was an application for a primary school, of course we'd be acknowledging the fact that people coming and dropping off their kids and picking them up would cause some disruption. But I don't think for a second anybody would be saying no to this on that basis. The reality is this will put parking pressure on. I do notice, looking at the plan, if we look at that, if we can just call up the aerial plan again, the site. There, that's that last one. Yeah, that one. So at the front of the building, we can see, though green space is lovely, there's a lot of green space to the rear of that, probably to the left as we look. But to the front of it, sort of top right, it's not difficult to see where, with a little bit of creativity, 8 to 10 extra spaces could be inserted if somebody chose to do so. that would require a revision, I know, but I just ask, given what I anticipate we're likely to do today, and bearing in mind the reality of the parking pressure that is inevitably going to put on the area, whether there could be a little bit of a look at whether perhaps a few extra spaces opposite those top right could be inserted, because even that can make the difference. And we don't want to lose the green space, but you've got green space behind. There's a lot of green space behind this development anyway. 8-10 extra spaces might make the difference, and it might just help with community relations as well.
Thank you. Nick O'Donnell, please. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, when I first read this, I equally was disappointed that it wasn't a primary school. If you have a look at I'm just going to make the comment. Actually, it's just a comment, it's not a question. So, but if you have a look at South Taunton, there's a gaping hole of primary school provision at the moment. It's so it would have been an ideal place. So I'm hoping at some point a primary school will come to that area. I was going to go back on the parking. Yes, they say there's going to be about 20 people working there at any one time, 25 spaces. That doesn't leave much for visitors, so they will be out on the street. The other thing I was thinking about, of course, is that they just said there's 6 spaces for electric vehicles. Now, generally, people who turn up in a petrol car won't park in an electrical vehicle space. It almost seems to be like that's reserved simply for an electric vehicle. So I'm wondering whether actually there aren't 25 parking spaces, there are actually only 19, because as Google says, this year only 2.7% of cars on the road are electric. So if you had 100 parking spaces, you would expect to have about 2 to 3 electric cars turn up, and they provided 6 spaces. So I'm wondering whether it's possible you could reduce just to save the impact on the local environment or the local streets, the number of electric, or have that number of electric vehicle spaces, which I think is good because it's looking towards the future, but make it clear that they're available to all cars. Otherwise, you are restricting the amount of people who can visit on site. And to be honest, most people visiting a care home are visiting elderly relatives and who are probably in advanced years themselves and probably don't want to have to walk. Probably not that mobile, or there could be a lot of people who are turning up to visit very elderly parents who are, elderly themselves. So I would suggest that a rethink about the electric vehicles, whether they're just for general use or just, well, I don't want to see the reduction of electric vehicle spaces because I think we should be positive and look towards the future.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to bring the case officer back in. Paul Shiver.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a brief comment on some of the debate. In terms of the provision of extra car parking spaces, we can't do that as part of this application. It will require amended plans and further consultation, and so that's not for us to do today. But the travel plan includes monitoring of the travel measures, and if additional parking was required as part of that monitoring, then the applicant would be perfectly able to come back for an amendment to their landscaping scheme to put the additional parking in. And once it's operated, we'll have a much better idea of the parking demand and how that actually operates in person. And again, in terms of the EV parking spaces, we can look at that through the travel plan and see how they're being used. The applicants in attendance today, I'm sure they're also making a note of some of these things, and that could equally be addressed by some signage to make it clear that they're electric vehicle priority, but not only for electric vehicles should the other spaces be full. Again, there will be a travel plan coordinator within the building once it's operational, who can deliver some of these things. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I'll make a comment on education. The Education Authority and the Education Department within this council looked at the options and decided that for them and for the school role that they anticipate in the next few years, they were better taking a financial contribution than holding this site for a school. What changes in the future is, of course, in the future, and I don't know what that might be. But the Education Authority feels that that was the best option for them to take, because I am told that we are over provided for, and inevitably with parental choice, some schools are oversubscribed. That's true, but the reality is there are sufficient, we are told, sufficient primary school places within the county at the moment. Okay, So, any other comments or queries from members of the committee? Norman.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I can't let this one pass by. The developers have put in an H design here, which is virtually identical to one that came into Monkton Heathville and presented. I at the time argued for it because the developers obviously knew what was the best layout for a care home. It was thrown out by the planning committee at the time because of its design. And the car parking was virtually identical to the car parking that is provided here. And that was another ground for objection. And it was on a bus route. So I am concerned about consistency, but quite frankly, I cannot see why we shouldn't support this one. And I couldn't see why the other one wasn't supported. So I think we need to take a careful look sometimes at how these applications are treated.
Okay, I'm going to bring Caroline Ellis in now, but I will point out that we regard each individual application as an individual application, and the merits or demerits of any application do vary from site to site. Caroline.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about this in the round, I don't think we can oppose this. I think we have to support it. And it's quite refreshing when you have a developer coming forward who's actually thought about renewable energy on site and is committed to providing it, because hardly anything that comes our way has that. And it's a source of huge concern and aggravation. So I applaud you for that. It's quite refreshing. There will be issues of the parking. I think there's a note to our planning service here, because this keeps on happening. If you look at Riverrain Lodge in my patch, no end of issues with there being insufficient parking for visitors, for carers. It's a nightmare, and it was totally avoidable, and it's the planner's fault for not insisting on a reasonable level of parking. As sure as night follows day, what you've got up there will be inadequate. It's inevitable. If you're telling me that there's things in place that will enable that to be addressed, then that somewhat eases my concerns, because it won't be adequate. And I think probably you do need, as Derek says, a few extra at the front there. I would say to the residents, I can completely see where the residents group is coming from. I totally get it. And I think that they maybe need to, especially once the roads are adopted, and get in touch with the town council, because you've got a town council now who is picking up these issues, neighbourhood by neighbourhood. We're picking up all of those really frustrating issues with, parking and congestion and whatever, and trying to work with residents and then lobby the big council to get a resolution. So totally understand the issues facing residents, but I don't think they're sufficient to want to block this particular application. And I think there's mitigating things that can be done in the future. But the parking is a concern, but I just think on balance, this will do more good than harm.
Okay, I'm confident that the officers have taken note of the comments today. Sorry, Stephen, I didn't see your hand. My apologies, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think on the whole, what I'm hearing is that members are in agreement with this application. Nevertheless, there is continuing concern about the car parking and associated items with the travel plan, which is condition 11. And I'm actually slightly intrigued by it, because obviously in that condition, a transport mode and travel pattern survey should be conducted not less than every 12 months for a minimum period of 5 years, and look at things like cycling, public transport, car sharing, the provision and control of car parking, teleworking and emergency taxi cover. Person shall be identified to be the coordinator of it. The local planning authority shall be notified of the results of the survey. Okay, so what? So we're notified of the results of it. What happens if there is a problem? What compulsion is there then on the developer to address that? And that's what is missing for me from that condition. And I would have liked that condition to have said something a bit more specific about what the remedy might be if a problem is identified. At the moment, it doesn't.
Hold that thought. Yes, thank you, gentlemen. I'd like you to come back on that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, we can add a tailpiece to the condition that requires an updated travel plan to be submitted if requested by the local planning authority. It's probably the best way to do that. Obviously, once planning permission is granted, we can't require them to cease using it until the issue is resolved, but maybe that additional tailpiece on the condition will give the committee some comfort and give some step-in rights for the local planning authority to go back and try and approve an amended travel plan. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, committee, would you be happy for myself and Gary to go through, along with Mr. Shepherd, the wording of that additional condition in our desire to consider, before we consider approving or not this application, with that addition to that? I'm going to refer very briefly to sorry, I forgot your name, Mr. Finlay, my apologies. I wonder whether that is something you think that you will be able to take back, having heard the discussion in the room, rather than just seeing a few an extra line on a condition, whether you would be pleased to take that back to your sponsors and talk to them about it, because it is obviously a concern. And if we're putting a condition on, then I would expect that condition to be fulfilled.
Yeah, that's absolutely something we can take back and relay to whichever one of our operational arms eventually takes over the care home. It's also in our best interest that we don't have parking issues and we're not upsetting local residents. As I mentioned during my speech, it's something that it's really important that we integrate and a real community asset. So if there was issues with parking, that's something that we would look to resolve, and we wouldn't want to be aggravating residents by having parking on the road. That's why we have the travel plan coordinator who would not allow that to happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Finlay. Okay, committee. Any other comments? Any other wish to speak on this? No. Okay. The application has been proposed to be approved by Councillors Hadley and seconded by Councillor Solly. Can I see those in favour, please? I'm happy to say that is also unanimous today. Excellent. Thank you. Now, thank you very much for this. I hope we're going to have a repeat of this afternoon, and I will see you all at 2.